Good evening, good afternoon. I am excited to welcome you to the second Monitor Side Chat in our series, Tufts Entrepreneurs Tackle Tough Questions. This event is being put on by the Tufts Entrepreneurial Alumni Network, or TEAN, in collaboration with the Tufts Entrepreneurship Center. For those of you who don't know what TEAN is, this group serves as a resource for alumni in the technology and startup spaces, helps alumni looking to transition from the corporate world to the technology and startup space, and is a resource for the university and TEC. I'd like to introduce you to some of the folks who are part of TEAN and TEC, some of whom you see today, who are the people making these events possible. Iggy Molliver, Shelby Schultz, Josh Goldman, Mark Heslin, Kevin Oy, Josh Kapelman, who's also one of our amazing panelists today, Amy McDonald, who works behind the scenes at Tufts to make all this happen, Sarah Kugelman, who is a Tufts alum, TEC board member, founder of Skin Iceland and Gloss.com, former VP of Estee Lauder, and the person who's going to be handling the Q&A at the end of tonight's session. Along those lines, we will be leaving about 20 minutes at the end of the evening for questions. Please feel free to submit your questions along the way. You'll see a little Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And we will do our best to get to all of those questions before we close out the evening. So my name is Brittany Sokoloff, and I'm an alumni from the class of 2011 and a member of the TEAN New York chapter. I was so grateful to find my way home to the entrepreneurship program during my time at Tufts. I remember listening to the speakers that Jack Derby brought into class, reading through company case studies, and taking away one critical message. An entrepreneur has to be resilient. Forming a company isn't easy. Navigating your way from startup to success brings daily and unique challenges that you have to adeptly maneuver your way through. Now, while I opted for law rather than entrepreneurship, the lessons remain. Indeed, the strengths of an entrepreneur, determination, perseverance, learning how to pivot, are relevant to most people in most industries. And I think that's why this series is so special, because who better to charter our course through these unique times than entrepreneurs who have built a career doing just that, chartering their own unique paths. So without further ado, let's turn to tonight's talk. On behalf of TEAN, in connection with the TEC ecosystem, I am excited to introduce you to Mary Wang and Josh Kapelman, who will be speaking about the impact that COVID-19 has had on the retail industry. Mary Wang is a Tufts class of 1976 grad. She has a master's in applied positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. Mary started her career at Macy's and Bloomingdale's, where she was a buyer and divisional vice president of women's contemporary sportswear. She's currently the COO of Proenza Schouler. Previously, she was EVP for merchandising and supply chain for the Alexander Wang Company. Prior to that, she was brand president of DKNY, overseeing production, development, and global sales for women's ready-to-wear, shoes, and accessories. Previous positions in the industry include president of Coach Domestic Wholesale Division, president of Tommy Hilfiger, and president at GFT Emmanuel Angara. Incredibly impressive panelists we've got today. And our other amazing panelist is Josh Kapelman, who is a Tufts alum from the class of 2012. He is the executive vice president and principal of Hildun Corporation. Hildun is a well-known company that provides entrepreneurial financing and factoring for many of America's iconic fashion brands. Prior to joining, Josh had extensive experience in entrepreneurship, finance, and sales, having launched 2 companies in the esports market during its infancy. Josh has also served as a speaker and judge at a number of conferences, including recently serving as a judge at the Fashioning Industry Pitch Competition and speaking as the British Fashion Council's annual British Fashion Forum. Josh sits on several boards, including on one of his angel investments. And as I mentioned earlier, Josh is an active member of the Tufts Entrepreneurship Center, where he sits on its board of advisors. And just so you know who's talking to you, my name is Brittany Sokoloff. As I said, I'm Tufts class of 2011, and I'm a commercial and white-collar litigator in the New York office of the law firm Schiff Hardin. So, turning to what we're actually here to discuss today. As the name of this series connotes, everyone is tackling tough times right now. The fact that industries are facing challenges becomes something of a universal truth. Josh and Mary, you both represent brands in the fashion space. Mary internally, and Josh from an external standpoint. What is the biggest obstacle that you're facing right now, and how have you been overcoming that?
Well, thank you, Brittany, for your kind words and introduction.
Mary, do you want to?
Oh, thanks for your kind words and introduction. I think that right now, and I actually had a conversation with Josh about this the other day, the biggest obstacle for us has been the managing of our finances, who to pay, how do we get paid, and how to keep the manufacturing process still going on while we're trying to wait for the reopening of our business. And it's not that much dissimilar to what a family would be doing with their finances if one member is on furlough and another one's working part-time, just trying to figure out how to manage everything while you're waiting for everything to become more normal.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, Mary. You know, for me, you know, it's how do you plan for the unknown? How long is this going to last? What is it? What does it look like if this thing comes back? How does it work? I mean, for me, we finance, you know, hundreds of fashion brands, and I used to say, well, show me a cash flow of what your next 9 months are going to look like. What are your sales projections? There's no purpose to sales projections right now because we really don't know. There are a lot of positives, and I'm you know, every day I start off optimistic, and I usually don't end that way. Today, I'm actually ending a little more optimistic because stores are starting to reopen through all of this, and I'm sure, and I know Britt, you'll talk about this later, but you know, there are still online retailers. Brands are finding creative ways to ship themselves. In fact, one well-known direct-to-consumer brand that is out of California, and I'm not going to mention the name, they have about 7 or 8 retail stores, and I'll leave it there. Because they are not an essential business, they had to shut down their online fulfillment. What they did is they actually went to their warehouse. The COO moved into the CEO's house. They went to their warehouse, they pulled everything out themselves, brought it to their house, and they are shipping goods out of their home. And that's just how they've been able to overcome it because, Mary, to your point, cash is king. Being able to plan financially is super important. So at least you can control your direct-to-consumer fulfillment and ensure that there's funds coming in the door.
So along those lines that you left us on, Josh, you know, I do think that you're right that online shopping is such a huge part of what's become our society. And, you know, even before COVID became a thing, you know, we would go onto Amazon for just about everything. Most big stores and brands do have a website with an online shop, and it, you know, as you mentioned, it is a problem if people, you know, can't get their distribution centers open and can't make fulfillment on purchases. But, you know, as we evolve out of quarantine and back into society, how do you see people interacting with physical stores? And do you see there being a shift to direct consumer sales, you know, more generally?
Sure. I'll start off, Mary, if that's okay. You know, I for the last 5 years, really since e-commerce became such a large thing, people would come into my office all the time and they'd say, oh, I just want to start up a D2C business. Wholesale is dead. It's an old model and it doesn't matter. And happily, about a year ago, everyone started changing the model. And they said, you know what, D2C is great for margin if we also have wholesale. And just very high level, the difference between wholesale and direct to consumer, if you're selling into a Saks, let's say, Saks is actually purchasing from you and then they're reselling it. That's wholesale. Direct to consumer would be if you're selling it yourself. So for example, you're going on to Allbirds and purchasing it, that's going to be D2C. A lot of people have been saying, well, D2C is better because it gives you better margins. The truth is, yes, if you have the right margins to begin with. So a lot of people have been going in this direction, and then they realized how expensive customer acquisition was, and they went back into wholesale. At the same time, the wholesale, at the same time, the department stores have been getting killed. And I think we have to relook at what brick and mortar and what wholesale means today. In my mind, I'm including Net-a-Porter, Shopbop, Revolve, Forward by Elise Walker. All of these are today's department stores. So I think even in this environment where you can't walk into a store, there are still opportunities for you to sell. And it's interesting. 2 weeks ago, we organized a talk with the CEOs and chief merchants of Nordstrom, Neiman's, Saks, Bloomingdale's, Intermix, Elise Walker, and Bergdorf. And we talked about, well, what does this look like for you? How are your businesses being affected? What is the future going to hold? I think this is actually going to have lasting impact on the fashion industry. And Mary, I'd love to hear if you agree or disagree. I mean, the stores are all saying they want to now hold less merchandise than ever. They want smaller deliveries. They want more of them. It doesn't make any sense to ship coats, which are things that we've all been saying for a long time. For you to be having coats sitting on racks in July and August, and that it's time to start shipping product and when it actually should be held. I'm very worried that that means that it's going to put a lot more pressure on the brands. One CEO said that they no longer want to pay for goods until it's actually sold in the stores. And for anyone in the fashion industry where that you're already watching your cash flow, now you're looking at 60 or 90 days after delivery getting paid, that can be a death knell on a business. So there are going to be a lot of lasting change, but I also think there are going to be some positives out of it. I think we're going to go back to the mom and pop. We've been starting to go to a specialty store model, but now more than ever, I'm not going to walk into, and I should be careful because this is being recorded, but I'm not going to walk into a department store right now, but I would have absolutely no problem walking into a local store in town where there are no customers, or you wait outside and it's one at a time, or you text ahead and set up an appointment, and you're the owner of this store that you're supporting, and you feel good about supporting local. And these people, and these are the Elise Walkers of the world, and Kieran Zabet, some of the top specialty stores throughout the world, they know their customers so well. So I'm either going to buy that way, or I'm going to go online to Mr. Porter and buy it online. It scares me where that leaves the department store.
I think that Josh really hit it on the head, mom and pop stores. I think that the human interaction is going to be increasingly important. From what I hear, I feel that the department stores are going to try to develop and have more time for personal shopping, which I think is a positive. I think they're following their model that, excuse me, that 80% of their business is coming from 20% of their customers. That being said, I also feel that if you had a internet presence, you're definitely going to intensify that, because that's the only thing that consistently the last few weeks has providing any source of revenue and income for you, because everyone else has been closed. I don't think that it's going to be a complete dramatic destruction of brick and mortar. I think that there will be a presence. I think that there will be specialty, but I do believe that the stores that have a lot of stores will be editing down the stores. Nordstrom just said that they were closing the Jeffrey stores. I know that Macy's is going to be announcing closing stores. Mm-hmm. Neiman Marcus is. So they're going to keep the ones that have the most profitable dollars per square feet and have their more affluent customers, because that is where they're going to be able to still bring in the revenue. As stores open, I was just reminded that a TJ Maxx store that opened was mobbed because people were trying to get in. So there's a lot of different factors that I think will play. I think price point sensitivity is something that definitely is going to be very important. I mean, I think about what people are doing now. Would you spend $2,000 buying a designer handbag, or would you rather be online to buy a Peloton bike? So I think that most people are choosing to buy a Peloton bike at this point and wondering why it's taking so long to get one. There's been a huge shift in consumption, but definitely online shopping will become a bigger and bigger part of everyone's revenue base.
It's interesting, Mary. I'd be very curious. So I had a call with we've been talking obviously in my business where we guarantee the credit of the retailers. So we've been talking to the CEOs and CFOs of all the retailers and also the online, because I had assumed for a while that ShopUp must be just crushing it right now. They're the only ones open. They're the only ones where people are buying clothing. And the answer is, at least that what they've told us, is their numbers are actually dramatically down, with the exception of leisure wear, which makes sense. We were joking about it before this started. This is the first time I put on a button-down shirt in 8 weeks. And I'm referring to it now as Zoom chic. I'm not going to lie. I'm wearing shorts because everyone's looking at the waist up. How has that affected your business being in that luxury price point?
Our .com business, our e-commerce, well, we had a collaboration with Birkenstock. So our Proenza Schouler Birkenstock collab has done exceptionally well. We have a line that's called White Label, which is a lower price point, more casually driven. That, of course, has done exceptionally well. The brand has some elements of tie-dye t-shirts and elements that are slightly casual in nature, but still somewhat luxury in price point because of the hand artisan workmanship. So those more accessible price points people are willing to buy right now. And of course, sale is done well too.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
I had this, you've both spoken to this a bit, but, mom and pop stores, Josh, you're thinking may survive all of this, but department stores might change the way that they look in society and how many there are. But, how does this affect, the landmarks that we've got in terms of the shopping world? New York City, it's always been Madison and Fifth Avenue. And now it's extended downtown as well. But, LA, you've got Rodeo Drive and all the streets parallel to it. Do you think these landmarks will remain kind of a cultural fixture in our society, or do you think there's going to be some sort of phasing out that will, beyond having effect on fashion and retail and culture, will have an effect on people's jobs, that they work real estate and who's inhabiting those spaces? Do you see that as being something that also, changes?
I definitely think there are going to be changes. I think that the A-level stores that are on Fifth Avenue, Madison Avenue, Soho, they will not be looked at or could be evaluated in terms of profitability. If they were profitable, you're extremely lucky. I think that what they are distribution channels that send a message for the brand. So I think that they'll be looked at a little differently. I don't know if they'll exist to the extent that they have existed. I think the landlords, unfortunately, will be big losers in all this, because everyone, if you escalate up, the one thing I keep hearing is that no one's paying their rent.
Yep.
So, and they're not really getting a lot of relief. So from the city or anybody else in terms of their tax bills. I do think that they're going to make big changes in terms of their rent if they want to keep these buildings occupied. So there will be some presence, but of course there's going to be change.
I think you make a great point about rent, and we talked about that on the phone the other day. There's definitely going to be a fallout when it comes to banks looking at their mortgagees and what's happening there, and who's able to pay and not, because the retailers aren't. I am, to your point, I am less worried, I think, about the tourist shopping areas, because I think that will come back, and I think flagships remain flagships. But I think this is the death of the malls, at least for now. I mean, when a vaccine comes out, we are Americans. We have very short memories of everything. I think it's very possible that everything goes back to normal. But I think we're wondering, why are we all driving to malls where there's just tons of people and traffic and everything? At the same time, I go back to, and I'm saying the same thing I said earlier, but I'm really excited at the opportunity for the mom and pop stores. I look at Hamden Clothing, which is a store in Charleston, South Carolina, and Stacy is the owner. She does a great job. She had to close down. Her business absolutely suffered, but this whole time she's been on her Instagram. She's been hosting Zoom cocktail hours with her top clients, and she's been drumming up personal business, because there still is, in the luxury space at least, there's still a luxury consumer that's willing to spend money and willing to buy. And but at the same time, their traffic is getting killed. Elise Walker and a number of people that operate in Maxfield in Los Angeles, which is some of the top shopping, to your point, Britt, out there, they're all saying, unless we can have customers coming back in our stores right now, there is no way we can keep the lights on, because personal shopping will only get you so far. Home delivery will only get you so far. You need to get the people back in the stores.
Mary, one of the things you mentioned earlier was, do people want to spend $2,000 on a luxury handbag or on a Peloton bike right now? They've got to make a choice, and why aren't the Peloton bikes coming in fast enough? So I brings to mind the idea of manufacturing, distribution, and inventory right now. Like a lot of people, I've spent these past few months in quarantine organizing my entire apartment. And the last time I went on to the Container Store to binge something else that I probably don't need, I was offered delivery times extending into September and October. What sort of manufacturing, distribution, and inventory hurdles are you seeing? And do you think that COVID-19 will push companies to perhaps manufacture more goods in the United States?
I
think Mary's internet cut out there for a second.
I don't know. I got a webinar, a survey to take. What I was trying to say is that China opened up, so our manufacturing is based in China for parts of our line, and Italy opened up 2 weeks ago. So we haven't had a problem in terms of manufacturing, and we've been able to get our product. We also, because the stores have been closed, the delivery dates have moved out. So everything sort of moved back, and we're still able to manufacture and get things on time. So I think that our distribution channel and what we've done has not been an issue for us, because we're able to adjust the demand, and our supply is still viable right now.
So it's interesting. One of the things that we're hearing across the board from retailers right now, and Brittany, to your point, I'm not buying things that say delivery in July or June. We are now so accustomed to buy it now, get it now, walk home with it, that waiting is not an option. And the stores, we're all in this period of time. And Mary, I'd love to hear you agree with me that planning far out is almost impossible. So I think there will be a return to manufacturing in the U.S. Now we have a major issue where we don't have enough skilled labor for that, and the prices are still higher. But in the luxury space, a lot of our clients are going back to producing in LA or New York because the lead times are faster. And the stores are all saying, listen, I can tell you right now, if you can have a product to me in 30 days, I'm going to buy it from you. If you're telling me it's going to be 90 days or 6 months out, we just can't order 6 months out because we don't know what the world's going to look like then.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we have access to New York and LA manufacturing, it's fine. But right now, our LA manufacturing has had a big problem because they haven't been able to get their workers to come back in. And New York is the same thing, and especially in the city. But where I think the United States, I think that manufacturing in your country is really something that all of the countries across the world are focused on. I just read that Japan is investing billions of dollars to bring more manufacturing into Japan. I think for the United States, one of the things that, obviously the PPE not being manufactured here and all of it coming from China was a huge issue. So you had people like Ford going in and transforming and making ventilators, et cetera. So I think some of that will continue. There's some essential businesses that we as a country have relegated everywhere else because of the pricing. And I think that we saw that really was not, in retrospect, at the time, a good choice. I think there needs to be some critical usage manufacturing done in this country.
Another thought that comes to mind is, and I think somebody mentioned LVMH earlier, but it is, it describes itself as the world's leading high quality products group. It's got 75 brands or houses under its umbrella, and because of this, perhaps it is better suited to weather the storm that is ahead of us or that we're currently in. So one thing I'm wondering is, are you seeing a difference in how companies of different sizes handle these difficulties of COVID-19? And second, coming out of COVID-19, how do you think brands will approach the idea of merging or being acquired?
I think that a sense of collaboration and community has definitely come up. When you talk about an LVMH, they have the ability, like for instance, they took all their perfumery factories and switched them to making hand sanitizers and donated everything to the French government, doing that for the last few weeks. They have the money and the resources and the philanthropic tendency to do that. As far as companies like our size, there's been a huge launch of efforts by BOF, Business of Fashion, the founder. Dries Van Noten, Giorgio Armani are trying to take this time to reformat the existing retail model. There's a lot of conversation about going to 2 markdown periods a year instead of all the time, one in January and one in July, having fewer markets, having the stores not marked down every 4 to 8 weeks, and giving the brands the time to determine their own destiny a little bit more. So there is that going on, and I think that it's developing a lot of speed. A lot of people have signed the petition, and I think changes will happen. I don't think Josh, what do you think?
So it's funny. Hildun is part of that conversation with Imran. We're part of that committee. And separately, we're working on creating, and I'm blanking on the legalese of it, but sending something to the Justice Department now to allow us as an industry to talk and not call it anti-competitive, because, or you know what I'm saying. The idea being that for us to be able to have a conversation about when the markdown cadence is, in and of itself, is illegal in the United States, where it's not in France. And so first we have to change the law around that. There's so many changes that need to be done. And this is an opportunity to do it. LVMH it's interesting because each fashion house or each conglomerate works a little bit differently. LVMH is using the bargaining power of one as it pertains to the retail stores, their landlords, all of it. Each of their brands says, we speak with the voice of LVMH. If you look at another, and I can't say the name, but it's a US one, each of their brands are forced to deal with it on their own. So when you add up LVMH's current loss in Neiman Marcus, they're going to become a top creditor. But whereas if you look at this other conglomerate that I'm talking about, each brand is going to be separate. Each one had to deal with it differently. And because of that, they're going to lose that. And so I think the shared services model is going to become more important than ever. I mean, what we are doing with our clients now is we're pooling all of our clients to become one Hildun voice as it relates to the retailers. And it's been very successful in pushing from Macy's, which told everyone we were going to start at, I think it was 120 days. And now they've gone down to net 60. We're doing the same thing across the board. Kohl's told everyone that they're canceling all licenses and using force majeure. And TJ Maxx, I think, originally said, we're not making any payments because we don't have any money. We as an industry spoke up and said, TJ Maxx, you have $6 billion of cash sitting on your balance sheet, in addition to, I forget how many billion available in your revolver. You're killing all the little guys. It's just not right. And so I think as an industry, we need to come together. The CFDA does a good job of it, but there is no group that really represents fashion across the board. And I think we desperately, desperately need that. And I hope to see that come out of it. Now, on the M&A side of things, I'm getting hit up by investors every day that are calling us up and saying, hey, we would like to acquire whatever dead loans you have, whatever dead companies you have, we'll take it. I think we're not in a good market for you to be in the world of M&A right now. I think if you can, keep your cash flow lean, hold on to money, and just wait, because any investment opportunities you're getting right now are just total bottom feeders.
So if not going the M&A route, and Josh mentioned Neiman's a couple times, which recently filed for bankruptcy and restructuring. Do you think that there are brands that might turn to restructuring as a way to retain their independence, but also leverage the debts that they currently have and how they have to repay, things ranging from rent to costs on inventory?
Josh, why don't you start on that one?
Could you repeat? I missed the tail end.
Sure, and I do apologize if anyone hears clapping or whistles in the background. It's 7 o'clock in New York City, so everybody starts cheering for our essential workers. So I guess my question was, you've mentioned Neiman's a couple times, and if brands opt not to go in M&A route and gain some protection that way, do you see them going a route through restructuring where they retain their independence but get to leverage the bankruptcy system to offset, certain rent payments and lease obligations and other financial obligations that they have?
Sure. Bankruptcy in fashion is very fickle. The consumer has such an opinion over a company after it's filed for bankruptcy that in my mind, and Mary, tell me if you disagree, dramatically tarnishes the value of the trademark and dramatically tarnishes the brand. John Varvatos filed, and I think we will forever now have a different view of whatever new company comes out of John Varvatos. It's very hard to come out of that successfully. I think what many people can do is restructure quietly and outside of bankruptcy, where if they're losing tons of money, you work out deals with your investors, they give up some equity, you bring in a new lender. But I think for everyone starting a brand today, and I was talking about this on a board call, and actually it was from the last Tufts talk that I picked this up. Companies right now should plan on holding 18 months of cash, 18 months of runway, so they know that they can survive in these crazy times. At Hildun, we finance and we lend against inventory or production, and receivables to help you keep that amount. But the most important thing right now is protecting everything you possibly can. Find credit insurance to cover your receivable risk. Make sure you have enough lenders who are willing to give you dry powder. Apply for the PPP loans, everything that you can possibly do just to hold cash.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's best at this point trying to restructure and make the difficult decisions within your own company so that you can preserve your cash flow, work with your manufacturing partners, your banking partners, getting refinanced as much as you can. I think that to get investors at this point, it's like Josh said, you have the bottom feeders out. It's really not a good time to do that. It's not a good time to do bankruptcy. I think that if you are in somewhat stable financial situation, cut back on your expenses, try to increase your cash flow, and do the things that will help you survive through this.
Mary, I'm curious, how many brands do you think are going to make it or die during this period?
I really don't know. I hope more people make it because I would hate to see so many people out there unemployed. I was happy to hear that Rent the Runway got financing because I really feel that, they're a client of ours and I know they employ a lot of people. I'm really happy when I hear that people are able to get a lifeline. I do feel that some brands will not make it, but the fashion industry is very resilient. You have a lot of gutsy, gritty people. I worry more about the restaurant business and the other businesses that are out there. I think the fashion business, they're out there, they're doing stuff. People are making masks. They're making money on making masks. There's things that they're doing to flex and pivot that I think will help them survive. So hopefully more of us will survive.
That's actually a great point. A number of our clients have shifted to producing masks. Christian Siriano being well known now for dramatically shifting his production and making them in New York. We have, I'm getting probably hit up every day with a client that now needs help financing their masks or gowns or whatever it is sales.
Now, along this positive note, from my perspective, I think the biggest positive I've seen as a result of COVID-19 is the sense of community unlike one our nation has really experienced in a while. People across borders and party lines are working together towards a common good. How are you seeing this sense of community play out in fashion and in retail more broadly?
I think that when you see the philanthropic efforts of some of our lead companies and what they're doing and what they're donating, I think you feel incredibly inspired. I wonder about how in fashion and just in consumerism, what's come out is that I feel that I don't mean this in any derogatory sense, but I mean that the everyday person, the person are now the new heroes. Whereas we've been so used to this sea of influencers who prance around and show themselves in these, luxurious homes, these luxurious pools, wearing an outfit. I think much more today, the hero being the frontline doctor, the nurse, the everyday person who's delivering food. I think that there's been a dramatic shift in who you appreciate and value. And I think that extends to fashion too. So I hope that continues, because the people who are out there who really have made this thing help turn, especially in New York City, flatten the curve and taking us to the other side, are the true people that we should look and respect. So I think that the influencer and the days of the Kardashians, the flamboyant consumption has definitely slowed down.
I really hope you're right.
And I hope for our sake there are no Kardashians on the line watching this programming today.
But when I look at which brands of ours are doing really well right now, and believe it or not, there are many that are actually their direct to consumer numbers are up 120%. They're realizing now they didn't need to open up that new physical store because they've made up for it in online sales. And I'm seeing that a lot. Those ones are all giving 15 to 20% of every sale to UCLA Medical Hospital or various different charities, and are all giving back. Yes, everyone right now is giving a discount on everything because I think you have to do that right now, but they're also giving something back to the community, and you feel good about spending money in a time where people have needs.
I think that's true.
Any advice for people who'd like to go into the fashion industry at this point?
Well, my advice would be that you would definitely go onto the e-commerce side of it, mostly. I think that would be the best starting point for anyone or goal to get into that side. I think the fashion industry is it's a fun business. Unfortunately, right now we're having a tough time, but I think that if that's your passion and that's what you like, there's a way and a path to finding something that you will enjoy and find fulfillment in.
So I love that. I'm not going to say run, which is what I was originally thinking, but I said it anyway. No, the truth is, people always need clothes. People always need product. We are consumers, it's in our blood to buy things. And so I think, Mary, you're spot on. I agree with you completely about focusing on e-commerce, but I also think it's about, you have to do what makes you happy and you're passionate about, because you're going to go through some really tough times. A lot of people I know have been furloughed and are going to be out in the market looking for new positions because they didn't like the way they were treated. I think it's all going to come down to, you have to be willing to suck it up and deal. And I think in the end, it'll really work out well.
And I think one last question before I turn this over to Sarah for the Q&A. So again, as a reminder to anybody listening, if you've got questions, please drop them in the Q&A, and we will get to those as well. Or if you can't figure that out, put them in the chat, reach out to us. But I guess my last question is, what is the one thing in your wardrobe or your closet that you currently can't live without during quarantine? For Josh, I know it's not a button-down shirt, but.
It's not. I'm not going to lie. I've never been a sweatpants person. It's just not me. I'm wearing sweatpants like every day now. Now I'm shifting to shorts. Never done it before, but I'm calling it Zoom chic because I said no one sees from the bottom down anyway, so who cares?
I think there's two things I can't live without. One are my sneakers, and then the other thing is my contact lenses, because the mask is unbearable if I wear my glasses. So those are the two things I'm really addicted to.
I try to wear my sunglasses out to hide, any dark circles or anything else, and they just immediately fog up, and my husband is laughing at me as I walk. But I think add to that list concealer, and I'm on board with the two of you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah for some of your questions from the audience.
Great. Well, we got a great question just now. It's sort of a three-part question. So Mary and Josh, I'm going to ask you this in three parts. The first is, we've seen brands with retail offer curbside delivery, other ways to get products outside. What are other innovative ways brands are offering customers safe, contactless, and flexible pickup return solutions?
I don't really know of anything other than curb pickup and mailing. I don't think, unless your state is open, that you can open your store to have a private audience with a customer. I really don't know of anything else. Maybe you can do a virtual meeting with your customer, have a Zoom meeting with them, and have articles of clothing that you can show that you're going to send to them and explain how you're going to wear it. I think that there are some online shopping via Zoom.
It's interesting. One of the department stores, I'm sure they all are, but I just heard about this yesterday. They're having the sales associates that are in the stores that are allowed to be open are Zooming or FaceTiming or videoing with the clients, and they're trying on the clothes for them so they can show you how it would look as if it was on yourself.
Interesting.
And we'll just add in, I just recently saw, I can't remember what the website was, but a website where you could try makeup on online. I guess submit a picture of yourself and apply it so you could see what it would be like. And I think that that's revolutionary and exciting.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in beauty, they're doing the same thing, sort of one-on-one consultations online for products. So I think that's one way to get around that too. The second part of the
Sarah, is this the death of the sample, by the way, speaking of beauty?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's, or I shouldn't say the death of the sample. It's going to be the death of testers, because that has a serious health implication. So I think testers are going away and samples are going to replace testers.
Oh, interesting.
Makes sense.
So they'll have to be obviously like packets or things that are, one-time use. But I think we're going to see a real transition in how people use beauty products. And I think this is both in beauty and fashion, how do they test the product when they don't want to be touched by a sales associate?
Yeah.
All right, so a second part of this question is, how are retailers thinking about the last mile to maintain margins while keeping shipping costs under control? So sort of basically margins, how are retailers thinking about margins and brands?
I think the first thing the retailers are going to do, the ones that have been closed, is trying to move out the inventory that's been sitting there since March and trying to bring in the newness without taking a bloodbath, because there's not going to be that much support from the brands, because how much responsibility can you have to the selling of the product if the stores have been closed 10 weeks? Moving the inventory without taking a bloodbath, I think, will be the priority of the retailers. And then I don't think there will be as much available for the clients when they come to the stores, because the retailers are severely cutting back their orders. So what they will sell will probably sell at regular price if you want it, because there's not a rack in the stockroom of the same thing.
It's interesting. Right now, if you go to the ports, you're going to find containers and containers and containers of clothing and other consumer products that no one is willing to consign, because the stores were all bringing in their spring goods, some of them late, and now they're saying we don't want it, and you can't send it back to the factory, and there's just no one that's willing to take it. And a lot of these people are also just not working that can pick it up or move it or whatever. I'm very close with one of the big liquidators that has liquidated a lot of these retailers, and they said, we've stopped. We cannot do any liquidations until this country reopens. We're not going to get the level of foot traffic we can. And the way the liquidators used to work is they'd buy your just all of your inventory on spec and then sell it in whatever form they wanted. Now they're saying we'll only do it as a percentage of sales basis because we have no idea what these are going to look like. I'm very worried about June, just from a markdown month. I think the stores are going to reopen. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to put spring product on 60 or 70% off. It's why we as an industry are coming together very quickly to try and prevent that from happening, because, you know, there's just so much product out there right now, and it was coming in. So, I mean, I'm hearing from a lot of brands that their orders have been cut, 40 to 60% through the end of the year.
A really interesting question just came in from Melinda, and she says, hi, I'm a freelance fashion designer, specialty women's wear, and I was going to introduce a small spring fashion line this past March of 2020. As we all know, the pandemic really hit then, and as a result, I postponed putting it out. This was going to be made to order. She says she has no inventory. Unfortunately, a few items were finished in India, but India is on a lockdown and I cannot actually produce these items at this point. If you were me, would you go forward for this spring summer and simply state that you cannot make a few items, or would you wait until September when the spring 2021 collections are shown?
I definitely wouldn't make anything for delivery now. I would try to adjust my line for going forward. I would look at the samples that I did make and see what I could adjust, or what I believed in would be something that I would want to ship next year. And I would adjust, I don't know, the nature of the clothing. Is it occasion? Is it dressed up? Is it casual? I would adjust it to the current mood of what I think is going to happen.
I would add one thing to that, which is, if your product allows it, start thinking about core, start thinking about seasonless. I think we're going to see the death of Fashion Week is now here. The death of seasons is closely following that.
Yeah,
it's going to be just buy now, wear now, what feels right and makes sense. Outerwear, it's a problem. Swimwear is always going to sell. But otherwise, just think about fabrics that are lighter weight, that work, that you can layer well, because I think we're in a seasonless time now.
Yeah. I mean, I think this moment of immediate fashion is here, and that sort of obviates the need for Fashion Week too, or it transforms into something else. So, like, what could it transform into? I'm getting a couple of questions too about retailers sort of kicking the pain of COVID and quarantine down to the brands and the consumers by, these payment terms of 90 to 120 days. Have you both seen situations where retailers have handled that in a more ethical, or I shouldn't say ethical, but conscious, a conscious way for brands and consumers? And how do you think this is going to be addressed going forward?
Absolutely. So the thing that I've been telling every single brand that asks, which has been a lot, is don't take no for an answer. The stores are calling up, and their first move, a lot of them showed their true colors immediately and just said, we're canceling all orders that we have outstanding with you. If you've already produced it, tough. It is what it is, and we're extending your payment terms. As a brand, you are not required to take that. You can say to them, no, I thought we were partners in this. We've been working together for years. I've been giving you a discount. I will happily give you 25 or 30% off now. I will happily give you your payment terms, but you have to take my order. If you want, take spring, let's call it pre-fall. Take pre-fall, let's shift it to fall, and just push everything back. For many of our clients, they've actually been really successful using that strategy and mitigating all of these cancellations. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to be working together for many years to come. And these big stores don't want to be known as putting these little guys out of business. And so there is a place you can push.
Yeah, I agree. Luckily for us, we delivered all our spring merchandise at the end of February, beginning of March, so we don't have any issues. And we were able to navigate our go forward inventory, but we really haven't had any retailer. If you're in the luxury space, your business is not that big unless you're one of your Gucci or somebody like that. We don't really have people behave in a negative way like that. Most people are just, asking if things can be changed and we work it out. It's been very professional. So I think that if you sell to a mass marketer and you're at the lower end, I think that's where you get a lot more of it, do it my way or go on the highway.
I've seen retailers also tier their payment terms. So for smaller brands that really need help and assistance, they've done one thing. And then for bigger brands that can sustain that, they've done something else. So I think that's an interesting approach as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we just got a great question from Bill Lavin. An article in Forbes describes more sustainable fashion and goods in the aftermath of COVID. However, will the reality be different? How will the industry turn towards or away from environmentally gentler for the planet?
If anything, I think that people are more interested in sustainability because one of the things that's coming out of this is that people, because of the cash flow, are using existing inventory. So the upcycling and the transformation of fabrics that you never used before, but that you own is something, and that has zero carbon wastage because it's already made. So I think that sustainability is something that our designers and our industry is really interested in. And I think with what's going on in COVID, personally, the ability to go out and sit in a park or take a walk has been incredibly one of the joys of this period. So I definitely don't think it's been kicked to the side. I think if anything, it's moved forward. Josh?
I really like what you have to say. I'm actually not as opinionated on this, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just to add, Mary, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think that that's been one of the silver linings of COVID is that it's been better for the environment. So I think that that is going to piggyback on that trend.
I agree.
Okay. Let's see here. Here's a question from Robert. So now Zoom brings us into hundreds of people's homes each week. This gives me lots of furnishing ideas that may cause me to buy for my home, but there are no or few events to stimulate fashion's new ideas and purchasing demand. Can you comment on that?
Absolutely. What I've been telling a lot of people is this has created an opportunity to really connect with your consumer. You have their attention. So some of the brands that we work with are now hosting Zooms where they're going with their top brands, their top clients, or having an influencer or someone who they love talk about why they love their clothes, how they feel in it, and showing off the new season. And I think as we leave or as we go through Fashion Week with COVID, I think that's what we're going to see. It's the designer hosting an Instagram live and walking you through a collection and really allowing you to connect with your customer. Adelante, for example, which is a Tufts company, which we'll be hearing about, I think, during next week's event, they're going to be having something where the cobblers are actually, you get to watch the cobblers making the shoes and talking about how they make it and different things. There is an absolute way right now where you can use this as an opportunity to connect to your consumer.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that the narrative, the brand narrative, and the ability to have a designer talk about their line and their brand ID is something that, and speak to a large number of people at the same time, is something that probably would not have been as accessible, even though the technology has been here. I think a lot more people are very comfortable with what going online and speaking. And I think that the more you know about a brand and the story behind it, it's the personal stories that make us emotionally tied to something that make us want to buy.
Yeah, I think that's great. I've heard even smaller retailers doing cocktail hours with their top customers and connecting with them that way and trying to engage them in the emotion of the brand. So I think you both make really, really good points. Another good question here from Margot. With unemployment so high, the consumers will go to off-price box stores and dollar stores. How much will this impact department stores?
Ugh. It's a great question, and I do not have the most appropriate answer, which is we saw this in 2008 where the luxury customer didn't stop shopping. There was for a little while, they would actually hide their bags coming out of Dior or whatever in a different shopping bag, so you wouldn't see them coming out of the stores. I think on that space, it really won't be affected. But I think that we're going to see more of a value buyer for a long time, and it all depends on what the sales cycle starts to look like. I think things like the Real and Tradesy, on one hand, I think, okay, this is going to do better than ever, but at the other hand, I'm wondering, are people actually going to be comfortable buying secondhand right now?
Yeah, I definitely feel that that you should buy what has a great price value relationship. I don't think you should just buy because the price is low. I think that the relationship has to be there. Anna Wintour talks about how she feels that maybe this will be the death of fast fashion, and combined with sustainability, I think that there's something to be said with that. I think the most important thing when you're thinking about making a purchase is if you don't need it. This is about a purchase of something you don't need. If you want to buy it, it has to be something that touches you. And usually things that touch you are not that low in price. So I think it's better to buy one thing that you love and you have tremendous usage from. And like Josh was talking about, core basics and seasonless fabrics. These are the things that will make you enjoy the product much better and get your usage out of it. So that would be my advice. I wouldn't be lured by a price point.
That's a great perspective. Another interesting question from Anand. Should retailers be worried about tech companies such as Amazon entering the fashion space, or is this an opportunity for designers?
Everyone I know who went on an interview with Amazon was really scared as a designer. Amazon has a very aggressive standards and practices that they hold their fashion business to. I'm not sure it's the easiest thing in the world to do. And again, to me, it's the same thing that Anna Wintour is talking about, fast fashion. I don't believe that H&M, Forever 21, and all these people, I think that things have to change. Fast fashion, accumulation of a lot of things you don't need is not the way to move forward, but that's my feeling. I don't know if that'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched tech companies for a long time try to get into the fashion industry, and for some odd reason, the fashion community really does not like it. I mean, I remember how hard Google tried with Google Glass just to get into this space, and they sponsored every single event. And for about a month, I was like, well, maybe Google Glass would be something. And then it just got torn to shreds. And to your point, Mary, Amazon is a very difficult company to work with /for. They keep ShopUp kind of isolated, so it has a different corporate culture than Amazon. But even looking at, and I have to watch my words here, but I don't know if you saw how the CFDA did their CFDA shop on Amazon's website. It needed to have, in my opinion, it was a great idea, and it was sorely needed. But it ended up looking like designer clothes were sitting next to like mufflers in the very Amazon storefront way. It needs to have a special look and feel to grab that dollar spend on a product.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask you the last question of the evening, and thank everybody who joined us because they've been really engaged in asking some really, really wonderful questions. This question is from Peter, and he said, this has been awesome, and wants to know your thoughts on whether mission-driven brands will have a greater edge after this reckoning with humanity.
I think that the one thing that I would take from this whole period, the last 10, 11, 12 weeks, and the biggest lesson for me is the respect and the appreciation I have for people who are the reason why things happen just fluidly in this country. The people who make your deliveries, the people who, run the transit. So in that respect, I think that that appreciation touches all of us, especially in New York City, for all the frontline people who have worked here to stop this pandemic from getting even worse. So that I don't think leaves you. And I think that hopefully the decisions that we make that are difficult in dealing with our suppliers and our stores, that we have also taken with that the ability to be nice to everybody and to be respectful in our everyday lives. And I hope that that stays with everyone.
I'm torn. I'm torn. At the end of the day, we are still a product-focused world. You are buying a piece of clothing, a pair of shoes, whatever it is, because you like the way it looks, you like the way it makes you look, or you like the way it feels. I think that when deciding between two products, one that has a great mission-driven, good for humanity statement versus another, and the other one looks better, I still think the consumer is going to go to that. At the same time, I think we have been without connections and without our loved ones and for a while now. And I think everyone is looking for emotional connections. And so I think it presents a terrific opportunity for you to use your brand to say what you stand for and really emotionally connect with your customer. I think now is an opportunity more than ever to build lifelong customers. For they to say, you know what, during this time they were donating proceeds to X, and yet they still singled me out and said, you know what, now more than ever, we're hurting. Thank you so much for your purchase. And I think, you know what, by doing this, we helped a community in X, or we kept these people employed, or, be as transparent as you can, because I think that's what we're going to talk about.
So I want to thank our amazing panelists, everyone behind the scenes, Sarah, who has helped put on such a great event, and all of you for coming and joining us today for this incredible talk. We will be reconvening again next Tuesday, June 2nd at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time to speak with past winners of the Tufts 100K Venture Competition. These past winners include Anodyne Nanotech, Potencia, Zwitter, and Adelante Shoes, and talk about how they've adapted their businesses and stayed resilient in the time of COVID-19. So again, I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to virtually seeing you again next week. Have a nice night.